not keep you in a tent. They could not keep you in a temple or any of their idols to see and understand. We cannot keep you in a church. We cannot keep you in a Bible, or it's just another idol to box you in. They could not keep you in their walls. We cannot keep you in ours either. For you are so much greater. Who is like the Lord, the maker of the heavens, who dwells with the poor? He lifts them from the ashes and he seats them among princes. Who is like the Lord?
Well, good morning. How's everybody doing today? Woo! You know, we've already talked about it a little bit. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and that's kind of a big deal in our country. Like it might as well be a national holiday because it's something that everyone stops and they take time and they watch a game. And I get that the Seahawks aren't in it this year, and so maybe less of you will watch. But like literally, it's one of the most viewed things really throughout the country. And for me, it's a special day because most of you know that I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I'm a huge Rams fan. And so today is the potential for the fulfillment of a dream. And but I understand, like, to be Super Bowl champs, you got to get past the Patriots, and you got to get past Tom Brady. And that guy he's the GOAT. You've probably heard that before. It's the greatest of all time. And it seems like he's the consistent thing when it comes to the Patriots' success. And year after year, you know, if you can beat Brady, you can beat the Patriots. And so literally, I get that it's the Rams versus the Patriots today, but I got to tell you, for me, it feels a lot like it's the Rams versus the GOAT. All right? And, you know, and obviously most of you, like I said, you guys know that I'm a Rams fan. So over the last couple of weeks, you're like, Mike, who do you think's going to win? And like, I don't know these things. Like, you know, every time I think my team's going to win and they don't win, or I think they're going to, you know, going to lose and they surprise me. And so like, I'm excited, but I don't really know how this is going to play out today. But here's the thing. I wanted, for all the people who asked me what I thought was going to happen, I wanted to take some time and really think through it. And so I went to the scriptures this week and really tried to like, okay, I don't know who's going to win, but God, maybe you can like reveal to me really through your word who's going to win the Super Bowl today. And so I'm just here really as a messenger from God to share with you. But here's really what my studies came across. I found this passage in Ezekiel 34, beginning in verse 17. We read, "As for you, my flock, this is what the sovereign Lord says, that I will judge between rams and goats." So God's saying, like, look, I got to decide. Like, you know, there's two great teams. There's the Rams, and there's this old Tom Brady guy and the Patriots. So I have to judge. Well, that's great. Like, we need you to do that, God. Let us know how you would judge. And this is what he says in Leviticus chapter 16. He says then, "I shall slaughter the goat for the sin offering for the people and take its blood behind the curtain and do with it as he did with the bull's blood." So look, yes. So the Lord has made it clear that the Rams will win today. That's all I got. Have a great week, guys. We are finishing up our series this weekend called 19. And over the last 4 weeks, we've kind of dove into this series and tried to look at it like, what if we took a different perspective to the new year? What if we looked at this whole year in a different way, less about us and more about what it would look like for us to leverage our lives for the benefit of others? And as we've kind of walked through that, through this series, we've had a question that we've just wrestled with each and every week. And I want to share that with you again for the last time. The question I've been asking is, what breaks your heart? Like, what are the things that you're passionate about? What are some of the injustice that you see in the world today that you just, it kills you, and you want to be part of the solution. You want to make sure that those things don't continue. And I know for a lot of us, as we've wrestled with this, right away there's been things that break your heart, and you want to leverage your life to be part of the solution to those things. And we're going to stick with that same question. Last week we stuck with that question, but we began to look at it from a different perspective. Instead of individually what breaks your heart, starting last week and we'll finish up this week, we're going to look at that question through the lens of the church. Like, what is it that breaks our heart? Like, what are we passionate about? And this is what we said last week. These are the two things that break our hearts here at Lake Sawyer. That our hearts break for people who are far from Jesus. People who don't have a relationship with Jesus. People who've never had someone to share the hope and the love of Jesus. Like, that, our hearts break for that. The second thing our heart breaks for is for people who aren't growing in their relationship with Jesus. That maybe for a season they were really just on fire, but yet they've stagnated and they just started going through the motions. And I know a lot of us, we've probably ourselves have been in those seasons. Well, as a church, we want to help each and every one of us get back in love with Jesus, get our journeys back in a way that trends towards growth and a deeper relationship. And the thing is, it's not just that we recognize these things to be a problem. Like, we as a church want to be part of the solution. And we believe that we can begin to be part of the solution when we begin to orient the things that we do around these things to ensure that lives are changed and that people grow deeper in their relationship with God. And so as we wrap up this series, we're going to talk about how we as a church really help in a tangible way see some movement in these two things. But before we do that, we're going to go back to where we started. And if you're with us in week 1, we started with the story of Nehemiah. And if you weren't with us, no problem. Let me just do a quick update. Nehemiah heard of the condition of his ancestral homeland, of Jerusalem. And he heard of the condition of his people. And he wasn't in Jerusalem in this season because the Israelites had been exiled out of Israel. They were living in Persia. Nehemiah himself was a cupbearer in the king's court, and so he had a significant position. He was a person of influence, but he doesn't have at this point direct connection with what's going on back at home. And as he's here in Persia, he's hearing all these reports from back home of the condition of his people and how hard and difficult life has become for them. He's also hearing how bad the city of Jerusalem's become. Like, the walls, the great walls that once protected the city have been broken down in many spots. And the gates that allow people entering the city, many of the gates have been burned. And as Nehemiah hears the reports of his homeland, he just begins to weep. And his heart is broken for it. And he doesn't just recognize that it's something that needs to be fixed. He wants to leverage his life to be part of the solution. So what Nehemiah decides to do is he decides to go before the king. Again, being a cupbearer would have given him access to the king. He decides to go before the king and ask the king if he would release him, if he would release Nehemiah and allow him to go back to Jerusalem to be with his people, to see the condition of the city. But he does more than just that. Because he realizes if the reports that he's hearing are true, if the city is really as bad as people say it is, then it's going to take a lot of resources to help rebuild the walls. And so Nehemiah goes before the king and also asks the king if he would not just send him to Jerusalem, but if he would fund the rebuilding of the city. Now, this is a huge request. Like, this very well could have cost Nehemiah his life. But I'm sure for Nehemiah, he's weighing his life against the things that break his heart. And he's thinking, even if it costs me my life, I'm going to be about being part of the solution to the problems that plague the people of Israel. Now, we don't really know specifically exactly how the conversation went, but we know that the king says yes. There's something about Nehemiah that compels the king to release him, allow him to go back to Jerusalem, allows the king to say, look, I'm going to help finance the rebuilding of this great city. And Nehemiah, we're told, travels from Susa, which is the capital city of Persia, to Jerusalem. And that journey is about 1,000 miles. And this is in a day where there's no boats, planes, trains, or automobiles. Like, this is a very long, difficult journey. Most people would walk it. Some people would do it on the back of a horse or the back of a donkey. Sometimes maybe you'd have a carriage or a cart. Regardless of your mode of transportation, this would have taken multiple weeks to travel from Susa to Jerusalem. And like I said, it would be a grueling journey. And so it's no surprise that when people arrived, that they would be exhausted. They'd be just worn out. Like, in there, it's not like there's fast food restaurants on the side of the road to stop and refill. Like, the limited food supplies, limited water, harsh elements. Like, they barely make it to Jerusalem. So we're told that when Nehemiah gets to Jerusalem, he takes the next 3 days to just relax, to just recuperate, to get just his energy back. And at the end of those 3 days, he realizes it's time for him to start doing something about it. Because again, he didn't go to Jerusalem on vacation. This isn't a rest and relaxation trip. This is him being there to help see with his own eyes the problem, and then figuring out how he could leverage his life to be part of the solution. So after 3 days, Nehemiah gets a group of people together, and he says, hey guys, I need you to come and take me out. I need to see the city. And that's where we pick up here in Nehemiah chapter 2, beginning in verse 12. This is Nehemiah speaking here. He says, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one that I was riding on. So what Nehemiah says, look, he's gathered together this group of people, and they're going out at night. They're going out at night because it's safe at night, because no one's seeing what you're doing. But what Nehemiah tells us is the people that have gathered with him have no idea. Like, no idea why they're there. Like, he has not told them what this is about. He's not told them what God is up to. They think literally they're just out there giving a tour. They're just showing Nehemiah the city. Now, we know that these people aren't significant people. Like, they're not like the best and the brightest, or like the royal families of Jerusalem. We know that because Nehemiah says there were no mounts except for him. He was the only one on an animal, which is a position of prestige. And so it's Nehemiah and just this group of just regular old people, and they're showing Nehemiah everything that has happened to the city. And all throughout that night, literally they're going and they're inspecting the walls. They're looking at the gates. They see how the gates have been burned. They see the areas of the walls that have been attacked the most and that need to be rebuilt the fastest. And the whole night they're just taking it all in. And then at the end of the night, after Nehemiah has seen everything that he needed to see, he looks to them, and this is what he says. You see the trouble that we are in. All night they saw the trouble. Probably knew it on some level, but this evening has really opened their eyes to the problem again. You see the trouble that we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. Nehemiah says, look at the city. Look at what has become of our homeland. Help rebuild. Help us do something about this problem. And I have to imagine at this time the guys are like, what do you mean? Like, who are you talking to? Like, you got a mouse in your pocket? Like, who's this us that you're referring to? Nehemiah, we're just here to show you around. Like, we didn't sign up to be a part of something like this. You just wanted a tour at night. You're getting a tour at night. There's no partnership here. But Nehemiah doesn't stop. He continues in verse 18. Nehemiah says to them, he says, I also told them. I told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. Nehemiah says, look, I told these people what God has been doing, that God has been with me every step of the journey, that this isn't just something that breaks my heart. He's like, look, this is the thing that God is passionate about, and we've seen his hand on this whole thing. He was with me when I was with the king. He was with me when I traveled 1,000 miles to get to where I am today. He was with me as I gathered the group of you guys to go out tonight, and he will be with us even when we begin to rebuild the walls and repair the gates. And then I almost picture like it's this moment that Nehemiah looks at them and says, but what about you? Like, are you in? Like, God is with me. This isn't just a me thing. This is his people's land. Are you willing to give of your life to be part of the solution? And the people are like, absolutely not. Nope, like, I'm busy. I work a lot of long hours. I got to get the kids to soccer practice, and I got a dance recital on Thursday evening. I just got way too much going on to really help you, Nehemiah, and to help God with what he's got going on, and to help be a part of the solution. Now, that's not really what the people said. But the truth is, it's often what we say. When things are presented before us, when God has an issue that breaks his heart, and we can leverage our lives to be part of the solution, it's amazing to me how quickly we come up with reasons why we can't be part of it, as opposed to being open to what God wants us to experience through it. This is actually how the people responded. They replied to Nehemiah, all that he said, to the promises of God being with them in every step of the journey. They said, let us start rebuilding. Let us do it. We can do this, Nehemiah. We want to be a part of what you're doing. Let us do it together. And so they began a good work. I love this story. I love their response. I love that they want to be a part of the solution. See, the thing is, Nehemiah, when he saw the city, when he saw the gates, he knew that this wouldn't be something that he could do alone. That it was going to take more than just himself. And the people realized that they can't do it without Nehemiah, because Nehemiah has the vision for it, he has the passion, and he has the resources to help make this a reality. And so collectively they understand that as a team that they can be part of the solution. And so they're willing to give of themselves to begin to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. They understood that we is greater than me. That's something we like to say in our society. Maybe we don't use those exact words, but we say things like, hey, together we could do more than we could ever do alone. Or like, a team is better than an individual. Like we say things like that. I like to say things like that. But the truth is, in practice, we don't really live it out. Because we've become so used to me being more important than we. And I think about all the ways in my life that this has actually played out. I think back of those experiences or those moments, the times where I had a burden on my heart, or I saw something that needed to be done. And I realized even in that moment that it would be way better to get a group of people to do it with me, because it would get done quicker. You know, we'd have a bigger impact. I recognize that. But yet time and time again, I just go at it myself. I started to think this week, like, why? Like, why do I do that? And the best I can come up with is because I like my independence. Like, I like to accomplish things by myself. Like, I don't want other people to tell me how it's not going to work. Like, sometimes it takes longer when we have others involved. Like, these are the things I convince myself. But here's the reality. And this is why I'm sharing it with you. Because you're the same. Because in all of us, there is this desire for independence. Sort of like this underlying cultural value that we have here in America, that we are independent people, that we can do things on our own. And while that's true, it's not always what's best. And that's partly why this series is so difficult. It's why the season that the series takes place in is problematic. Because with New Year's, we are told every year is a new opportunity to focus on me. It's about making me better. But what we learn from Nehemiah is that if we want to see change, like world-shaking change, like transformation that lasts forever, it doesn't happen with me. It happens with we. And that's what I love about the story of Nehemiah. See, last week when I shared the things that break our heart as a church, when I talked about these things that we're passionate about, I didn't just do it to inform you. It wasn't an information dump. It wasn't like, hey, I just want you to know that this is what we as a staff will be working on. I shared that with you as an invitation to invite you to join us, to join with us, to be part of the solution. Because we literally believe that these are opportunities for each and every one of us to live our lives in such a way that we partner with God, that we're willing to partner with Lake Sawyer to make a difference through this year, but also through the rest of your life. And one of the things that I've said all throughout this series is that if you really want to be a better person, if you really, deep down, if you want to be a better person, then you have to do something to make the world a better place. And so what if, by joining with us, that's how you make the world a better place? What if you're recognizing that your heart breaks for the same things that our heart breaks for? Here they are again, just as a reminder, that our heart breaks for people who are far from Jesus. Maybe you're sitting there this morning and you're thinking, that's exactly what my heart breaks for. Then join us. Maybe you're sitting here and thinking, I agree, my heart breaks for people who aren't growing in their relationship with Jesus. And if that's what your heart breaks for, then by all means, please join us. Because what we believe is if we could be about these things, if as a church we could really be passionate about these things, that we will not only change the world, but that change will be lasting, the change will be eternal, and the impact will be felt forever. And that's what I want my life to be about. I want to see people come to know Jesus. And I want people to continue to grow in their relationship with him. But what about you? What is it that you want your life to be about? I wonder, what if you could leverage today to change someone's forever? You see, when he looked down at his followers, do you know what he said about us? He said, you are the light of the world. You're the light of the world. That you were literally called to shine light into darkness, to bring hope and healing to humanity. It's beautiful, it's powerful. There's this wonderful image that he shares that all of us can understand, because we know no matter how dark a place is, that the moment light gets turned on, that the light overpowers the darkness. And what Jesus says is, as Christ followers, we're supposed to live our lives in such a way that we're constantly illuminating light. And what that means is that being a Christian is more than just filling a seat on a Sunday. And the truth is, we've gotten ourselves into that mindset. I come to church, and I go to church, and then I go home, and I check, and I'm a good Christian. But there's so much more to being a Christian than filling a seat on Sunday. What it means to be the light of the world is that we're literally partnering with Jesus. That we're partnering with him and being about the things that he's about. That we're willing to leverage our lives and give of ourselves and give up our time and give up our resources to be part of the solution to the problems that plague humanity. Jesus wants us to be involved in the things that he's involved with. And if we're going to be the church, if we're going to be the church that God uses to meet the needs of this growing community, then it's going to require all of us. You, us, me, us, each and every one of us. And I realize it's at this moment where you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm pretty sure he's actually talking to the person next to me. So let me be clear. I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to the person next to you. I'm talking to you. Matter of fact, just do me a favor. Just help me out a little bit, just so I make sure we're clear. When I count to 3, I want you to say these words. He's talking to me, okay? We got this. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, but there's only 50% of you. I see people. So we're doing it again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. He's talking to me. I'm talking to you. Because God wants you to be part of the solution. God knows what you're capable of. God understands the gifts that you have. And he's asking you to shine light in the darkness of our world. To be about seeing lives changed. See, that's what we're all about. We're trying to let people know that God's love is relentless, that it's always pursuing. We want people to know that God's love never files for divorce. God's love never betrays. God's love never runs out. We want people to know that God is not dead, that God is alive and he's changing people's lives and he can change your life. See, as a church, we're just trying to flip the switch. We're just trying to shine light to let dads know that they have the power to change their kids' lives if they would just simply stay involved in them. We're trying to flip the switch in marriages where there feels like there is no hope. So we're trying to flip the switch to a whole generation of kids who would understand that God's grace is more than enough. It's powerful enough to overcome any mistakes that they've ever made. Maybe you're here and you don't know what breaks your heart. Maybe you've been struggling with this question for 4 weeks. Maybe you're here, this is the first weekend, you're thinking, I don't really know what breaks my heart. Nothing comes to the surface right away. Let me just say, it's okay. It's okay. But I want you to know that we have a place for you. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how young you are, it doesn't matter how crazy your past is or how clean your past is, that we have a spot for you. And we recognize that God has wired all of us so differently, and maybe you're one of those people that is highly relational and you have the ability to go deep with people. We have a place for you. And maybe you're thinking, well, not for me because my past, like I had a really bad past and that past probably disqualifies me, but it doesn't. That your past actually uniquely qualifies you because you can share about your experience. You can share about what you've learned. You can help others not make some of those same mistakes. You can share the joy of the transformation that has come as you've moved from your past. We have a place for you. But you could lead a group. You can help mentor kids. You can help come alongside our teenagers. You can help mentor adults. You can be someone who cares for our kids with special needs. Like, we have a place for people who desire to get connected and to know people, other people, at the core of who they are. Now, I get that's not everybody. Like that, maybe you're like, I'm not that person, but you're one of those people, like you smile and you light up a room and, everyone loves to talk to you because you just have this infectious personality. And I want you to know, if that's you, we have a spot for you because we need people like you. We need people like you just greeting and creating environments where people know that they're welcomed. So much of our kids' ministry is about creating these environments for kids to walk into and to know right away that they're loved, and we need outgoing, energetic people to help serve in those areas. We need you in the parking lots as people drive up. We need you welcoming people as they walk in the doors of the church. I'm sure this doesn't apply to you. But believe it or not, people actually argue on the way to church. Not you, other people. And so how refreshing is it when you come onto this campus and you're greeted right away by someone who just exudes love? We need people like you. Maybe you're like, I'm not someone who goes deep. I'm not someone who's just this infectious personality. I like just to be behind the scenes. I like to make things like just electronic things work. Well, we have a spot for you. Because I'm sure you know it takes a lot of work to pull this off. That we need people to run sound. We need people to run lights. Maybe you like to be out a little bit more and use your gifts. We need people to play in the band and to sing. We need people out in the parking lot helping us learn from those systems. We need people helping with communion. You get the point here. No matter where you're at, we have a spot for you. Would you help us flip a switch in someone's life? Would you be willing to join us, to give just a bit of your time, to be a part of the solution to the very things that break the heart of God? And if you're willing, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to go to this website, lakesawyerchurch.org/volunteer. And I'm going to ask that you would take a second to fill out the form that's there. And literally right now, do it. Pull out your phones. See, again, I can see people. Your face is not illuminated from underneath. Remember when that was a scary thing? Like you were a kid, you turn on the flashlight. Now it's just normal life. Anyways, pull out your phones and go to this website right now. I literally have 5 more minutes, so I'm good. And if God has put it on your heart, if God is stirring in something inside of you that that you could be part of the solution, then fill out this form. And here's what I'd say. Know that filling out the form isn't a commitment for the rest of your life. Like, we're not asking you to, like, hey, if you click on children's ministry, that you will actually volunteer in children's ministry until the Lord brings you home. Like, that's not what we're asking here. What we're simply saying is if by clicking on that and hitting submit, you're just willing to have a conversation. Just would be willing to sit down with someone and to hear a little bit more about what it would be like to use the gifts God has given you to flip on the light in somewhere, in someone's life. And maybe you already serve here at Lake Sawyer, and you're thinking, yes, I'm really glad that Mike's saying this because we need more people to serve. Again, I'm talking to you. Because maybe you've become just a little bit too comfortable in the areas that you serve. And maybe God has put it on your heart, but you've been really good at kind of ignoring that God is maybe calling you to something more. He's calling you to lead an area of ministry, to lead a group, to lead our guest service teams. Don't be content with what you're giving. So if you're already serving and God is calling you to something greater, go here. lakesawyerchurch.org/volunteer. Here's the thing. I truly want the rest of your life to be the best of your life. That all of us, we have unique journeys that have brought us to this point today. But what if whatever we have left in this life, we decided to leverage our lives, to give of our time to the things that mattered most? See, there's a lot of different things that you could do in 2019. There's a lot of different ways that you could fill your time. But what if this year you gave that time to flip on the light in some place of darkness, in someone's life, that through your sacrifice, you made Jesus known by one more person? That could be your 2019. But you have to step out and be willing to trust that we have a spot for you. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for Nehemiah. I thank you for his story and his willingness to put everything on the line to be about giving his life for the solution. And God, I pray that we would be those same kind of people, that we would recognize that when you've called us to something, when you've put a passion on our heart, God, that it's going to require all of us, and there needs to be a willingness in us to pursue that. God, I'm also grateful that through Nehemiah, we come to understand that it's not about me, but it's about we, that your scriptures talk about that we are a body and that collectively we come together to accomplish great things. So God, I ask in 2019 and beyond that you would allow us as Lake Sawyer to accomplish something great, not for our glory, but for your son, Jesus. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. Just a couple other things as we get ready to wrap up. We're going to leave this up here, and so maybe you weren't quick and didn't get that filled out yet. Know that will stay up there. Stay in your seat, you're good, you can fill it out. If you're not a tech person, you're like, I didn't bring my smartphone, or I don't have a smartphone, go ahead and head over behind these curtains to the Next Step Center, and we have a team of people there who could help you in this and help fill out the form with you. If you're newer here, maybe this is your first time, we'd love to invite you over to the Connection Zone that's just off to my left here, and we have a gift for you. Just love to say hello and help point you in the right direction and answer any questions that you might have. Because we're just really glad that you decided to spend your time with us on this Sunday morning. And as Brian mentioned in our announcement period, we're kicking off a new series next week called Best Sermon Ever, and we really believe that this Sermon on the Mount is the best sermon. And so we're going to walk through this over 7 weeks, and we think it's a great way for you to invite someone who's far from Jesus to hear a little bit about him, or for someone who's just not really growing in their relationship. Again, we believe that Jesus will help move people one step closer to him. And so you have these: invite a friend, invite a neighbor, invite a coworker, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a wonderful week.